Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of the World with Nate podcast. This podcast was created to shed light on some of the stories and lessons that we accrue during our time here. My hope is that those stories will bring us all together in this thing that we all call life. My hope for this podcast episode is that you find it both enlightening and enjoyable. So, sit back and relax. I want you to enjoy the ride. Special thanks to my friend Buck Kern of Hawkeye Storage and Consulting for helping me bring Season 2 of The World with Nate to YouTube. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of The World with Nate. Michaela Cox is my guest today, and we share a past that's rich because of our time in the food service industry. We worked together at Texas Roadhouse.
Yep.
We were both servers at the time being, and we went on to do now very different things.
Very.
So, Michaela, thank you for taking your time to come on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on here. I'm excited.
Heck yeah, I'm super excited you're here. You were part of my growth into the empathy. I didn't know anything about you, and I was an older gentleman working at Roadhouse while you were a young lady. You were in college at the time. And I didn't know your story. And when I learned about it, the strength that you have to get through the days blew my socks off. And since then, you've tackled every obstacle that's came your way. And I think a lot of you. So that's why I'm having you on the podcast.
Thank you.
And I think the listeners will share the same.
I hope so.
Heck yeah. Why don't you, let's start. Tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up.
So, honestly, there's not a ton of childhood memories. I think part of that is the trauma. But the ones that I do have are, me and my brother playing outside, playing in the backyard. We had a black lab growing up, and we loved her. And then we got a yellow lab puppy when I was 9, I think. Playing with the dogs outside, and then going camping as a family, going fishing were my favorite memories, just being outside. And I remember my dad always working in the shop, so my brother and I would ride up and down the street on our bikes while dad was in the shop, and we would hang out there, going across the street to play at the park, family trips, that kind of stuff.
Close-knit family?
Yeah, I would say pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that your parents split up.
Yeah, so I was in, second or third grade, and my mom just kind of up and left.
Okay.
She wouldn't tell my dad where she was. She didn't want to talk to us kids. And I don't remember for how long it was. For me as a kid, it felt like a lifetime.
Right.
Not having my mom there. And then she came back, but at that point in time, my parents had gotten divorced.
Okay.
So previous to that, they had already been married and divorced. So then married and divorced again.
So as a young kid, you don't know how long those issues could have stemmed. They had a hard time in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, their relationship was not healthy whatsoever.
Do you remember that as a young kid?
I remember lots of fighting.
Yeah.
Lots of fighting. There was always yelling and fighting. And my brother and I would just kind of stick together. We were pretty close.
A team. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Your mom, you said that she disappeared. Mm-hmm. What was that? You said that was tough. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, it just felt like I had been abandoned, honestly. That's your mom, especially when you're 9, 10 years old.
A little girl.
Yeah, and I see so many people even now who daughters and moms are best friends, and I envy that relationship. I never had that.
Yeah.
But I'm very close with my grandparents. My grandparents were always a big part of my life growing up. They lived down the street from us, so whenever mom and dad would fight, we would just ride our bikes down to grandma and grandpa's. Yeah, grandma and grandpa's.
Yeah, I got to see a glimpse of that at Texas Roadhouse because they came in all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yes, they are my biggest supporters, hands down.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You're very fortunate to have them.
Very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Very lucky.
So mom left and it was you, dad, and your brother.
Yep.
And how long was that?
I don't remember. Maybe a couple weeks. I don't think it was a significant amount of time. And then, she just kind of came back one day. I learned later she was seeing another guy.
Gotcha. So there's clues into that of why she was gone, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And then she came back full time and she was in your life?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure she just moved back in. They had reconciled and it was fine.
Mm-hmm. Figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As a young kid, those things are hard to put together.
Yeah.
Even still.
Mom was gone. Mom was there. Mom was gone. Like, what?
Yeah. What's going on? Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane when, you know, I have children and I know that kids need a stable environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, parents fight all the time. Don't get me wrong.
No, yeah.
This was like
knockdown, drag out kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Stuff's hard to witness as a kid.
Oh, absolutely.
As a kid who comes from a divorced family with parents, that sometimes they got nasty to each other.
Yeah, it's hard to unlearn those habits too.
It is, and to not become that.
Yeah.
And do those things yourself. Mm-hmm. Has that been a growing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always had the mindset, ever since my dad died when I was 15, I knew I didn't want to be like my mom.
Yeah.
I wanted to be different. I wanted to be the change. And people say, you're like your family, you know, the whole family history thing. And my family history is not great. And I refused. I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of that. And I really thought about, for a long time I was single, and I kind of planned out how I wanted my relationship to be, how I wanted to handle arguments, I didn't want yelling. I know there's always going to be some yelling, raising voices, but I don't want swearing. I don't want, we're a team.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want my someday marriage to be.
Significant other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, those things aren't out of question or out of worth. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody deserves.
It's not like I'm asking too much. I don't feel.
No, hell no. Keep those priorities high, Michaela. I would say.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned that your dad passed away when you were 15.
Yep.
What was that experience like?
So I was a freshman in high school, and
where'd you go to high school?
Waverly.
Okay,
Waverly
so close. Mm-hmm. Heck yeah.
Yep.
Shout out.
Yep.
They have an amazing football team.
Football,
right now.
wrestling.
Everything.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it was the end of my freshman year of high school, and my parents were separated.
Split up. Okay.
Yep. So they were trying to get divorced, and I was very close with my dad at this time. Again, so that Mother's Day, my mom was living with one of her friends in Cedar Falls and that family. And, you know, my brother and I were like, hey, can we see you for Mother's Day? And she did not want to see us.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always that estranged relationship. She would pull us close, push us away, pull us close, push us away. And, you know, my dad was very upset. He was disabled at the time. He had fibromyalgia, depression. I mean, he had all these things. He couldn't work, and it really killed him. The depression was at an all-time high. He wouldn't eat. So a lot of nights I would make like pizza rolls, French fries, because I was 15. I don't really know how to cook.
Same, Michaela.
So I would just make tons of food. That way he would have to eat the leftovers because he didn't like wasting food. Yeah. So I knew if I make too much, then Dad will eat. So that was my trick on how I got him to eat. But the day that he died, there's just so much to the story.
Take your time.
So.
And you had mentioned, you know, things, depression, all those things that were weighing on him, mm-hmm. his relationship with your mom. Mm-hmm. Men have a hard time talking about those things. Mm-hmm. Right now, there are issues in our society that men don't feel like they can.
Right.
So I hope the message is that we need to sit together in this space, no matter how hard it is, and talk about it. So thank you for speaking on these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the day that my dad died, I was having friends over, and I had seen something on the table to this week leading up to my dad dying. And I read it, and it was like where all the things are supposed to go to, like where money's supposed to go to, who the house is supposed to go to.
That.
I read it. It was on the living room table. I'm 15. I didn't know what that was. It was my dad's will with my mom kind of, X'd out of it pretty much because they were getting divorced. The papers just hadn't been signed.
Okay.
Essentially is what that comes down to. So I was having friends over that night. My dad said, hey, we're going to go to Walmart, and then I need to go to the bank. I need to get this thing witnessed.
Okay.
I said, okay. Well, I took too long getting ready, and he was so mad at me. I was like, I'm sorry, 15 years old. So everything was closed by the time, so he never got that will witnessed. So we got the stuff for my friends to come over, picked up my friends. My friends are over. Dad had a couple of beers, and then he said, I'm going to go for a bit. And I still have a text message in my phone from when I was 15. And I said, I love you. Please let me know when you're on your way home. And he said, okay. And that was the last time I ever heard from him. He gave me a hug, he kissed my forehead, and he left. And so the night went on, and actually my grandma had accidentally called one of my friends looking for me, even though I had my cell phone, but she sounded very frantic. We just figured Gramps is losing her mind, you know.
Plausible.
Yeah. And then my grandpa came over, and he saw the beer cans sitting in the garage, and he started crying. And I said, don't worry, Dad's okay. Everything's going to be okay. I was always the calm in our chaos, or tried to be anyways.
Right.
And then my godparents showed up at the house, and my
So your grandparents are there?
My grandparents were gone at this point. My grandparents had come over, and then they left.
Okay.
And my godparents got there, and I remember my aunt saying there's been an accident. I was standing in the kitchen, and I just fell to my knees. I knew something bad had happened, but I didn't know at the time. So I got into the car with, I called them my aunt and uncle. Got into the car with my aunt, uncle, and one of my cousins. My other cousin was 16, so she took my friends home. And my aunt actually took my phone from me at that point. I don't know if my mom had been texting me. I don't know what the situation was. And we get to the hospital, and I see all of my dad's family. I don't see my mom. I don't see my dad. My grandparents, aunts, uncles, my great-grandma, and my brother. And I went up to my brother first, and I said, hey, everything's going to be okay. We got this. We're okay. Nobody would tell me what was going on. And then I was pissed. I said, where's Mom? Where's Dad? What's happening? And I don't even remember how long it was, but they finally took me to my mom. The nurse came in, and she said, you kids can come with us. And my mom had told me that my dad had gone over there to where she was staying at the time. They had gotten into an argument. She thought he was leaving, and he shot himself. Mm-hmm.
Jeez, that's a lot to unpack.
Yep. And honestly, even to this day, I'm not really sure where he shot himself. But then, he was still on life support at this point. We did donate his organs, which I think is amazing. And my mom said, do you want to see him? And I said, no, I don't want to remember him like that. I want to remember him how he was, not hooked up to all these tubes and lines. And to this day, I'm still thankful that 15-year-old me was smart enough to.
Dang, that's a tough decision to make right there.
Yeah. Yep.
But now you have your memory.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's tough.
Yeah. So then, things just
and at 15
went from there.
With the relationship that you had said about with you and your mom,
mm-hmm.
and now your dad's gone,
mm-hmm.
where was your head at?
Honestly, at that point, my fight or flight responses kicked in. There was a lot of arguing within the family,
About what should happen with you and your brother?
Yep, what should happen with us.
Because he was how old? I'm sorry.
12.
And you were 15.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he was like 2.5 years younger than me.
Okay.
Yep. So there was a lot of finger pointing.
Who was arguing?
My grandparents, my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family. There were huge arguments, and it was not a good situation. And I actually got up at my dad's funeral, and I read a letter that I wrote to him. And I got up there, and I said, I'm tired of people fighting. I said, this is not the time or place. This isn't about you. Basically, you're all being selfish right now. It's not about you. Which...
At 15?
How do I know that at 15 years old? It's crazy, but...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So...
You laid your dad to rest? There's chaos in your family?
Yeah, absolute chaos. And then we had the whole will situation because it was still the will from, they were technically married.
Together.
So then there was argument on who should get the money, the 401k, the house, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Well, then going into my sophomore year... My mom turned into a pretty big alcoholic. She was not around. I remember calling and texting her, asking her to come home, and she would say she was out with friends, and that was very upsetting to me.
So she was your guardian at this point in time? She was supposed to be at home with you, and she'd be gone? Mom, we need you.
Yeah. Yep. And actually, her and my brother got into an argument. He had so she had gotten her hair cut, and it did not look good. And he told her she looked like shit, basically. And she didn't like that, and she kicked him out of the house.
And he was young.
He was 13.
Yeah.
He had just turned 13 that July, and this was probably September. So he went and lived with my godparents that had come to get me. And I said, well, this isn't right. He's 13 years old, and you're the adult in this situation, but you're kicking him out.
Yeah.
So then I went and lived with my godparents as well.
And him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And their 3 kids.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a full house.
Yeah,
It was a full house.
I guess.
So I should also back up and say, so my dad died on a Saturday. The visitation was on Wednesday. The funeral was on Thursday.
Of the following week.
Mm-hmm. That Friday, she introduced me to her new boyfriend.
Yeah.
The day after we buried my dad. So that was a whole nother situation. She was all about guys and drinking and herself, and it was hard being 15 and having to be the parent.
Yeah.
So that put a huge strain on our relationship too.
And looking back on those things, those are things that you don't want any kid to have to go through.
Mm-mm.
Every kid should be afforded, in my opinion, mom and dad. I mean,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not how it works out a lot of times.
Right.
So mom was non-existent.
Yep.
Got rid of her.
Yep.
And then you moved in with godparents.
Yep.
Who were like aunt and uncle, really close to you guys.
Yeah, very, very close to them.
And how long did that last? What'd that look like? High school?
I lived there up until, I think it was junior year. So most of sophomore year, junior year, and then, everybody has family issues, and then it kind of caused some issues between us kids. We were all very close in age, and I had just decided it was best for me to move in with my grandparents. My brother, on the other hand, was very troubled, we'll say. So he didn't like being told what to do because mom never told him what to do. Mom never made him follow rules. He was just able to have free reign, basically, because she was out partying.
Do what he wanted. Mm-hmm. That taste of freedom at such a young age when you need rules.
Right. And so my aunt and uncle had tried to establish those rules. He didn't like it, and so he would bounce between my mom, my grandparents, my godparents, whoever.
And the type of life he was having at your mom's house.
Yep.
Nobody was watching him.
Right. And he would get good at sneaking around, and at a young age, he started to get into drugs and alcohol. I mean, probably 14, I would say.
And when we're talking drugs and alcohol, what are we talking about?
It started out as marijuana and went downhill pretty fast from there. I don't know how fast because I didn't even know what weed looked like until my freshman year of college.
Right.
Yep.
So, it was unbeknownst to you at that point in time. Mm-hmm. What was that time like in high school?
It was
hard. When you look back at high school, Michaela, I mean, everybody has a high school, so I don't mean it like that, you know what I mean? But
I'd never go back. I don't think you could pay me to go back, honestly. Just trying to navigate and then navigate friendships. I mean, and then, trying to find those people to be there for you, but then not letting them close enough. I didn't open up for a long time. I was scared to let anybody love me. I mean, the people who are supposed to love you, the people who are supposed to care for you, provide for you. Left.
Yeah.
They abandoned me. If my own mom couldn't love me, then why would anybody else want to love me? Why would anybody else want to be there for me?
Yeah. And those things are hard to unlearn.
Yeah.
They're deep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that has been a learning process. And
definitely.
It won't probably be done ever.
No. It's always a learning process and navigating through those feelings and unlearning those things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
High school. You and your brother, he bounced around a lot. You had some stability at your grandparents' home.
Yep. So I had a lot of stability with my godparents, and then, decided to move in with my grandparents and cooking dinner with them, having those family dinners. That sense of normalcy for the most part was really nice.
Someone who loved you.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen how they cherish you, so I obviously know that's true.
I can never say good enough things about them. I'm very, very blessed when it comes to grandparents.
Yeah. Well, thank God.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your aspirations? You know, when we come from these broken homes as children, it becomes hard to dream when you're dealing with everyday stress of making it. And you had said that fight or flight.
Yeah.
When you're constantly feeling like you're just scraping to get by, what were your aspirations?
I knew that I wanted to be better. I didn't want to be like my mom. I wanted to prove to her that I was a better person than she was, that I was going to make something of myself, that I was going to make my dad proud. That was probably my biggest thing, is making my dad proud and making my grandparents proud, setting a good example for my brother since he didn't have a great example for a mother.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just taking one day at a time, honestly. And living with my godparents, their family is amazing. I mean, they, you know, between church and just being supportive, having family dinners, hanging out in the living room. They hang out in the living room all the time. And when I went over there, I was like,
for someone who has never seen, you've mentioned the family dinners. Mm-hmm. I mean, me and my wife are conscious about sitting down with our 4 children almost every night. Mm-hmm. And it is not okay if we don't make that happen. So we understand the plight in it. But for someone who has never had it, to make that suggestion that that's important, that is nice to hear.
Yeah. It has a sense of being together as a family.
A tribe, right?
Yeah.
Sitting
Those
around.
are your people.
Yeah, sitting around, eating together, being thankful.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love that. So how'd you decide where to go to college? Or what'd that look like for you?
Honestly, I really didn't want to leave my grandparents.
Okay.
There for a while, I thought I really wanted to be an occupational therapist, and I was going to go to St. Ambrose in Davenport. I actually have another set of grandparents there on my mom's side who I'm also very close with. They live there, and I wanted to get away. I wanted to get away from my mom, honestly.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But then the more that I thought about it, I decided I wanted to be a teacher. UNI's right here. I had quite a few friends that were going to be going there. Grandparents, my brother's here. So I decided to stay.
And that was your initial major, was teaching?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so first year at UNI was teaching. And my dad had always wanted me to go into the healthcare field. He said, you could go be a doctor. Well, I don't want to go to school for that long to
well,
be a
now
doctor.
You know that.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was one day that I was sitting in class, and actually Emma,
our friend was Emma, a season 1 guest, and we all worked together at Roadhouse.
Yes, the good old days.
Yes.
So yeah, Emma had said to me one time, she said, you know what, I'm going to be a nurse even if it takes me a little bit longer. For some reason, I thought I would be terrible at school and that I was never going to get through school for it, and that nursing school was hard, which it was very hard. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's very, very hard.
But that's a testament, too. Those negative self-beliefs that we carry can doom us before we even start.
Yes.
And you got through it. And you're now a nurse. And you're doing the job.
Yeah. So I owe a lot to Emma for giving me that motivation. You know what? Even if it takes me a little bit longer, I'm still going to be a nurse. And it doesn't define me as a person.
Hell yeah. I love that.
So yeah.
Emma, shout out.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So you decided to switch the major from education to nursing.
Yep.
What focus did you want to have? What sung to you back then?
You know, honestly, I wanted to do hospice.
Okay.
I wanted to do the end of life stuff because death is heavy.
Yeah,
death is heavy, and I wanted to be there for people during their hardest moments. I never wanted people to feel alone because I had felt alone a lot.
Yeah.
In the hardest times of my life. And I didn't want that for other people. I wanted to be there to comfort them and to help them navigate their way through that stuff.
Is that what you do now?
No. So I learned pretty quickly hospice is a lot, and I have a very soft heart. I knew I would not last. I would get burnt out very quickly.
Right. I can't imagine. I know people that do some end-of-life care, and it takes a special person. And to be able to have your bucket filled to be able to do that, it's a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I worked at a nursing home for 3 months once I got my LPN, and my favorite resident died, and I was like, nope, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's hard when you're, empathetic person and building those relationships.
Yeah.
And they're at the end stages.
Yeah. So now I work in ambulatory surgery at Mercy One. I get patients ready for surgery, take care of them after, and I still find that I'm able to comfort them in those scary times.
Hell yeah.
You know, right before surgery, starting their IVs even.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scary for some people.
Yeah.
For some people, it's very scary.
Yeah.
So, you know, helping them through that, I'm still able to fill my cup that way and feel like I'm useful.
Gotcha. Are there certain days for you that are more difficult than others?
Yeah, you know, some days, like birthdays, anniversaries, the holidays, those days are very, very hard. And it used to be a thing where I would always plan what I was going to do. Like, I'm going to do this for my dad. I'm going to go out to the cemetery. And now I do for me. Because I know that's what my dad and my brother would want.
Yeah.
When that day comes, I just do whatever I'm feeling like. If I feel like laying in bed all day, I'll lay in bed all day.
You give yourself the pass.
Yep.
Yeah, people need to hear that. Some days it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And there's some days it's just a random day and it'll hit you like a shit ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Comes out of nowhere. They say grief is like it comes in waves. You know?
And you felt that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, we had spoke about your dad and how that happened. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned your brother.
Yep.
What happened with your brother?
So, my first year of nursing school, of true nursing school, my brother had been in and out of drugs. So, my brother died in February. And that previous July, I was out in Colorado visiting a friend. And I had gotten a phone call from my mother's husband, who I do get along with him. He's tolerable. He had called me and he said, "Hey, we got a phone call. Mikey overdosed."
This is your little brother.
Mm-hmm.
So your name's Michaela, and he's Mikey, and your dad's name's?
Michael.
Michael, and your grandpa's?
Michael.
Okay.
Very creative.
Oh, is that coincidental?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yep.
It was all planned.
Oh, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
what I had thought, but I wasn't sure.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So Matt had called me and said that my brother had overdosed. I'm 12 hours away.
In Colorado.
Yep. And I said, well, has anybody called my grandparents? No, we didn't think we should call them.
Yeah.
So I got to be the bearer of bad news. I called them and I said, I have no idea what's going on. And honestly, I don't even remember what transpired at that point. But they all got to the hospital. I believe they coded my brother 3 times.
Wow.
To get him back. Yep. So it was an accidental overdose. I think it was like laced with fentanyl or, it was right around that time where it was
bad.
Yeah. And actually another kid from our high school had died from an accidental fentanyl overdose.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a devastating pandemic on its own, the opiate and drug epidemic that we're seeing.
Yeah. So that happened in July. And then that fall, my grandpa and I went to the Bremer County Courthouse to get committal papers for my brother.
To try to have
court committal for substance abuse.
Okay.
The judge
So he
granted.
would have to go to seek help.
Yes.
I was misunderstanding. Okay.
Yes. So the judge granted that for us. The sheriff went and picked him up. And honestly, my brother took it very well. I think at that point, part of him probably did want to get help. He realized
it was bad.
Yeah. And then my mom went up to the hospital.
Did you speak with him about those things?
Yes. So we had conversations and he would deny. And at that point, he was living at my grandparents and my grandparents found a metal spoon and tin foil.
So hard drug stuff.
Hard drugs. I don't even know which
Not
one
for
it
marijuana.
is. But no.
Yeah.
No. Not marijuana. So yeah, we got him committed, and then my mother went up to the hospital and said he was fine. Said he had no issues.
And undone
everything.
the work that you did to get him help.
And because she was technically guardian, so at that point he was 19. But because she was his first of kin, she was able to
undo what you guys tried to get done.
Yep. And he died, so that was probably September, October. He died a few months later.
And he died Because of what?
So he was on drugs at the time, and this is coming from his roommates at the time. So he had moved out of my grandparents. He was living with his fiance at the time.
Yeah.
And friends.
Yeah.
Yep. And they said that he was hallucinating. He thought the police were after him. He thought that cops were in the tree, and he shot himself.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had just talked to him a week before that too. I had said, hey, I really miss you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. I said, let's get together soon. I said, how about next weekend we go out to Grandma and Grandpa's and we have dinner?
And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. When you got that news.
So I was living by myself, or I was living with roommates at that point. And I had actually gone out the night before. I didn't get drunk or anything, thankfully, but I woke up, it was probably around 6:37 in the morning, and I had 30 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and like 50 text messages. And my boyfriend at the time was there, and I woke him up and I said, hey, something happened. I don't know exactly what it was. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but it's not good, and I just want you to know. And my aunt had texted me. My mom and I had just gotten into a pretty big fight, and I blocked her number, so she was not able to call me. So it was my aunt, my stepdad, and my brother's best friend. They were all like, hey, you need to call your mom. You need to call your mom. Where are you? You need to get a hold of us. We need to talk to you now. And I knew. So I called my aunt first because I really did not want to talk to my mom. Called my aunt first, and she said, I can't tell you. She said, you really have to call your mom. I'm like, I don't want to talk to her. I was getting mad at this point. I said, can you please just tell me? Yep. Here we go again. It's exactly how it felt.
People leaving Michaela out on an island, I imagine, is what it felt like.
Yeah. So then I ended up calling my mom, and she told me, she was hysterical. She told me that my brother had died. And yeah.
He was how old?
19.
Young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did the process after that look like?
Messy. Very, very, very messy. So again, I had to be the bearer of bad news, and I had to go tell my grandparents. So I called my aunt, that same aunt, my godparent that I stayed with. I should say that. Called her and told her what had happened. She came and picked me up immediately. And she said, I'll go tell your grandparents with you. So we told my grandparents, and that was probably the worst day of my entire life, was having to tell my grandparents that their grandson died. That was awful. I would not wish that upon my worst enemy at all.
I can imagine.
So I was in nursing school at that time. I had to make the phone calls. I called my friend Nicole and told her. I asked her to tell my professors, so it was Saturday night into Sunday, and I had class the next day. I actually had a test I had to take the next day, which I ended up taking because I couldn't reschedule it. I called my manager at Roadhouse, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Called Lindsay and told her, called Zildjian. And then, went and told my grandparents. And then I was at my grandparents for a long time. And I was like, I just want to go home. I don't want to be around anybody right now. I don't do well when other people are crying. I don't let myself feel anything because I feel like I have to be that rock for them. And I wanted to not be the rock at that point.
Yeah.
So my aunt took me back home, and my boyfriend at the time came over. And then that night we actually went to his family's house for dinner, and they were all wonderful. Very thankful for them through that time.
Sense of normalcy during the chaos.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So then first, I don't really know exactly why, but they did a tox screen on my brother. I think they just wanted to know what drugs were in his system. But at that point, there was bad blood between my grandparents and my mom. And honestly, we thought we were going to have 2 separate funerals.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how bad it got.
Yeah. And my mom actually made threats that she was going to kill my grandparents, that she was going to kill my godparents. I get it. I mean,
no way making excuses.
Parental grief. I can't imagine. Honestly, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a child. I don't have a child myself. I do think things could have been handled a lot better
Yeah.
through that situation. So I did. I had to be that mediator. I had to suck it up, and I had to go plan my brother's funeral with my mom that I did not get along with. That was hard.
I bet.
So actually, for the visitation and the funeral, we had 2 separate lines, people coming to me and people coming to her.
Oh, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's hard to hear.
Yeah. And again, I was the one who got up and read letters for my whole family.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people are going to be able to gain a lot from hearing about that strength to get through that stuff.
Yeah.
So this was how long ago now? 4 years?
It's been 4.5 years.
Okay.
So it'll be 5 years in February. And then Dad died 11 years ago.
You had said that, being a strong, successful person prior that we spoke is how you're honoring them.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide in general, it's terrible because I feel like it's a long-term fix to short-term problems. Yeah,
and at the time that my dad died, I remember people always telling me, it's okay to be angry at him. I never felt angry at him. I knew it. At that point in time, he wasn't in his right mind. People never are. And suicide was it had that harsh negative connotation.
Back then, I can't tell 11 years ago.
even now, there's still quite a bit of negative connotation, but it's talked about more.
Yeah.
But man, when I was 15, people did not talk about it.
Eggshells,
It was a sin.
Yeah.
And some people do feel that it's still a sin, but to each their own on that.
How are we ever going to learn and grow if we don't talk about it?
Yeah.
When I was at the Spark to Fire event this past, Amanda Goodman, who was speaking, and she made a comment that will always resonate with me. If you have the platform, then it's your responsibility to share those tough stories. And this is one of those things. And I'm thankful that you had the strength to come on and share about that, because I was not looking forward to sitting down and chatting about this. It's hard.
Yeah.
I've been in those
Heavy
shoes
stuff.
where I thought that my life wasn't of value, and it's horrible now.
Yeah.
When you think about what could have been, the lives that could have been changed. And I know that may be selfish, but I don't know any other way around it.
But there's no other way around it. Yeah, it's hard.
How do you deal with all the grief that comes?
One day at a time. That's like my motto, is one day at a time. That's the only way you're ever going to get through it. And you have to feel your way through it. You can't. There for a long time, I blocked out those feelings. I didn't let people in. I pretended to always be the strong person, and that I didn't want to cry. I didn't want people to see me weak.
Too tough for that?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to be that strong person. And then I realized you can have feelings. It's okay to cry, and you're still a strong person.
Oh, yeah. Look at all the stuff you've got through.
Yeah.
You can cry as much as you want.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, just one day at a time. Grief is messy. It's hard. It's complicated. There's no right way through it. And they say that there's all these steps to it. I don't know that I really believe that.
You're feeling something different.
It's like a tornado.
Yeah.
A tornado of emotions. You just have to sit with it.
Yeah. Be with it. That's great advice.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for Michaela? What do you hope to accomplish next? You're doing the nursing thing. That has been your passion for a long time.
Yeah.
I know
love
firsthand. We came back for my daughter had that foot thing, and that was the first time I'd seen you in years since Roadhouse.
Yes.
So it's cool to see you in your element.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect career for you.
Yeah. I absolutely love it.
Good. Very good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I can't let you get out of here before the firing range. You're
All
all
right.
nervous. Get real nervous.
I am nervous. All right, let's go.
This episode of The Firing Range is sponsored by Joe and Brittany Wilson of Vine Valley Real Estate. Even if you aren't looking to move and you just want to explore your options, you can contact Brittany at 319-230-6922 or Joe at 319-486-8115. Chat about your options. Let them know that Nate sent you. Thanks, Joe and Brittany. I appreciate your support. Michaela, are you ready to rock?
I'm ready.
Hell yeah. First one is, are you a travel bug or a homebody? I told you they were going to be tough.
Travel.
Grey's Anatomy or Friends?
Grey's Anatomy.
Summer or fall?
Summer.
Apple or pumpkin?
Apple.
A book or a movie?
Movie.
Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Christmas.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
I knew that one. Smooth peanut butter or crunchy peanut butter?
Ooh, crunchy.
Teach or are you a learner?
Learner.
And your final one, would you like to go back to the past? Do you want to be in the present? Or would you like to visit the future?
Oh, that's a hard one.
I told you they were going to be tough.
The past.
Hell yeah. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of people are going to benefit from hearing your strength.
I hope so.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Michaela.
Thank you.
Special thanks to my friend Katie Hine at Mattress by Appointment, Cedar Falls, for her sponsorship of Season 2 of The World with Nate.